4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, my name is Ken Pentel. I'm the Green Party candidate for governor here in the state of Minnesota, and it's an honor to be on the ballot this coming November 7th. So I'm encouraging everyone to get out and vote. That's a starter. The Green Party, as many of you may know, is based on 4 basic values: nonviolence, democracy, justice, and ecology. We are working towards and my campaign specifically is focused on the ability to heal our relationship to the earth and our communities. And we can do this by way of a more honest democracy, which is one of my key mandates that I'm asking of the people to support me behind. The other is to establish local sustainable energy that's efficient and renewable here in the state of Minnesota, and to establish a single-payer, universal health care system that covers everybody in the state. I want to start with a single-payer universal health care system. As you know, many Minnesotans do not have health care coverage, and many of us are suffering because of that. Not only those that don't have it, over 500,000 Minnesotans do not have health care coverage, but many people are stressed out over paying for their coverage, making decisions between rent, car payments, and other payments that they have to make choices over, and balancing that against health care costs. Many of our local schools, our businesses, farmers, many people that are in unions and government agencies, everybody is stressed out over health care. What I want to do is basically this. I want to establish a single payer by eliminating all the multi-payers in the system right now. We will eliminate HMOs and insurance companies. We'll get advertising and marketing out. Right now, the overhead in health care is about 25 to 40%. If we eliminate all those multi-payers and redundancies in the system, then we will bring it down to a single payer, which is about 2% overhead, not unlike Medicare or the VA and other examples like that. And as well as to the north of us, the Canadian system. What would happen is then we would set fees on a menu. Basically, we would have drug fees set, doctor fees, hospital costs. So everybody in the state would have a health card. You would go into the doctor or the hospital. You'd have your procedure completed. They would swipe your card. The bill would go to the state. The state would pay the doctor or the hospital. You would see no paperwork. Simple and easy. And what this does is it takes all the weight off of our communities, and as I mentioned before, all the weight off the schools, the doctors, the farmers, the businesses, small and large businesses, don't have to deal with health care anymore. And that is my goal in health care. Let's simplify the system. Every other democracy in the world has health care for their citizens. We have been waiting for this to happen. And I'm waiting. I need your vote to make sure that this translates into the system. The other piece of the puzzle is energy. Minnesota imports over 97% of our fuels, highly toxic. We pay endlessly to manage the waste in the system, and much of this energy is wasted. We could save over 70% of our energy use in just energy efficiency. The power plants of the future, energy efficient refrigerators, air conditioners, windows, lighting, motors, and so on. We could trap waste heat that normally leaves facilities like they do at the St. Paul Energy District, where they save over 46% of their energy by trapping waste heat. We could do this in big facilities all over the state and turn that waste heat into a turbine. So right there, between the efficient technologies and the what's known as cogeneration or trapping waste heat, we could save over 70% of our energy use here in the state of Minnesota. So energy efficiency would create 2 to 10 times more jobs. We'd be localizing billions of dollars. Right now we spend about 15 plus billion dollars sending it out of the state, and much of that energy coming in is just wasted energy. So if we localize the dollars, billions of dollars recycle in our local economies, now we have pools of wealth for basic human needs in our communities that normally leave, so for housing, education, health care, and so on. And also, we create 2 to 10 times more jobs. We would prevent huge toxic problems in the future, and we would reduce the overall cost of living. This includes reducing taxation, not having to pay for extra waste in the system. We would reduce the cost of government, not having to monitor the mercury or clean up more nuclear waste endlessly. This is the goal that I'm working towards. We've got to get our energy system in shape, not only for ourselves, but for many generations into the future. Because everyone knows we keep heating the atmosphere with carbon, CO2, and this is contributing to the baking of the planet, basically, global warming, and we're leaving huge problems for future generations. I want to prevent those problems. So in energy, I want to start with energy efficiency. Then we would go to local. We would make buildings their own power plants. We could go to geothermal, on-site heating and cooling of buildings. Very efficient. The other thing we could do is put solar in, solar shingles. We can have housing and building codes that reward for solar. So all the economics in the state of Minnesota would reward towards efficient, renewable energy locally. We can also add in the wind. We can add in the crops for energy. I don't want to go to corn as I don't want to displace food crops. I would promote, and I want to see hemp grown in Minnesota, switchgrass, Chinese sugarcane, which is known as sweet sorghum, alfalfa. Things of that sort could be grown in the state of Minnesota as efficient energy crops. Also, we could use hemp to grow paper in the state of Minnesota as an alternative economy for the farmer in the state, because I want to protect local farm communities, and sustainable organic farmers that grow locally would pay no property taxes. But to achieve these goals in health care that I've mentioned, in local energy, we are going to have to remove central money from our political system. We have to get big money out of politics. I want to take the Minnesota public funding system and increase it to lead towards our public elections being publicly funded. The other thing is, Minnesota in 2004 was per capita #1 in the country in the amount of money spent lobbying. #1 in the country. That was over $42 million. So you and I go vote, then we go work. Then massive amounts of wealth come into the state and orbit around our policymakers and infuse themselves into the policy, literally turning our government into a commercial vehicle. Short-term thinking, quarterly balance sheets, yearly returns. And what ends up happening is we leave huge problems, not only for us to clean up, a lot of messes, talked about nuclear waste, talked about the mercury, the CO2, but we also leave garbage in landfills and incinerators. So big commercial interests use our government, leave the garbage for the taxpayers to clean up, and we are stuck with huge costs in our system. I want to make sure that the lobbying influence is slowly removed from our body so the system can breathe and the people are represented in our government rather than big money. That's one thing I want to do in our democracy. The other thing I want to do is to establish an honest democracy, is go to instant runoff voting. Ideally, allow all cities in the state to pick their own election systems, and one of them would be allowing for either mayor, governor, president, so people could go in the booth for these single-seat offices and rank their favorite candidates. And for somebody to win, they have to get 50+% of the vote. If your first choice doesn't win, your second choice may win, or your third choice may win. But you can go in the booth, vote exactly how you feel, and not worry about your vote being thrown away. That's why I'm asking people to vote in a more honest way. The other thing is proportional representation. Right now in your ward or your district, your party or candidate could get 49% of the vote, and you could end up with 0 representation. That is not democratic. In a proportional system, we would have a voting region where you'd have maybe 10 members, and you would get 10% of the vote for your party or candidate, and you would win 1 seat, or 10% of the seats in that region. 20% of the vote, 2 seats, or 20% of the seats. Instant runoff voting that I mentioned earlier, used all over the world, in the United States as well. It'll be on the ballot in Minneapolis this cycle, so it's moving along. Proportional representation that I mentioned, where you get 10% of the vote gets 10% of the seats, it's used all over the world, and most every other democracy has proportional type systems. Right now, we are locked out as a people from being reflected in our government. If we do not get an honest democracy, we cannot move forward to solve some of these big problems that I mentioned just now I mentioned. There are solutions to the problems. There are ways to make changes. But I need people to line up and vote honestly with people like myself, Ken Pentel, and my running mate, Deneen Provencher. We are ready to do the job, but we need the public behind us to help make that happen. Your votes, I'm asking for, to line up with your values. If you believe in an honest democracy, if you believe on healing our relationship with the earth and leaving the world better for future generations, vote Ken Pentel, Deneen Provencher, November 7th. Thank you so much, and see you at the polls.